Welcome back, everyone. I'm excited to welcome our April L.U.V ambassador today to share her story. So, today we are welcoming Leah Adams, and she's based in Cleveland, Ohio, and works at the National Kidney Foundation. We first connected a few weeks back on Instagram, and it was very clear from our first conversation that she had to be an L.U.V ambassador. She was so ready to share her story, help create change, and help motivate you all. So Leah, we're gonna launch straight into our first icebreaker question just to start off in a fun way. So if you can eat any meal in the world right now, what would it be and why?
Well, I just had lunch, so I'm actually thinking more of a dessert for my next meal. So I would probably say a ice cream sundae with cookie dough ice cream, some caramel sauce, sprinkles, whipped cream, and yeah, that would basically be what I would really want right now. I am a big sweet tooth girl, and my first job was actually at an ice cream store. So that is something that I always like to make myself. So
Oh my gosh, that sounds delicious. I'll have one too.
awesome.
Well, awesome. I always like to start in that fun way because as we were saying offline, these conversations are not easy, even if you're, years down the line. It's always something that when you start to recount that story, you start to remember what it was like. The good, the bad, the support, the community are, some of the good things, but there are also a lot of scary things where you feel, maybe embarrassed or frustrated or hopeless. So we're going to start off with you kind of giving a broad picture of what your skin cancer experience started off like, because you didn't know that it could impact you when you were first diagnosed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I'll take you guys back into time, back to the fall of 2019. I never went in for a skin check before then, but I knew it was probably time, given my history of not practicing healthy sun habits, not wearing sunscreen, using tanning beds. I have a lot of moles on my body to begin with, and I noticed that some were getting bigger, some were changing shape, and there was one in particular on my chest right here, very, very small, looked a little dark. And my mom even made a comment about it at one point, and she said, "You may want to get that checked out." And, moms and daughters, not really always listening to our moms. I just kind of brushed it off. But then in the back of my head, I kept thinking, it wouldn't hurt just to get a skin check. So at the end of September in 2019, I went in and I purposely did not say anything about this specific mole to begin with. I just kind of let them do my head to toe check and see what they found because they're the experts. They would know what to remove. And lo and behold, that mole that my mom pointed out was the one that was removed. So I did have that biopsied, and looking back or remembering what that mole looked like, it was very dark. It did not have even edges. It was actually black in the middle. So I figured, oh, it may just be an abnormal mole. I can't be skin cancer. It would never be me. 2 weeks later, on October 14th, I got the call from my dermatologist and she asked, "Hey, do you have a few seconds? I want to go over your biopsy results." And I thought she would just say, "Oh, you're good. You're fine. Just want to keep an eye on things." And she said, "You have stage 1A malignant melanoma." And I don't even remember if I answered her because the second she said melanoma, my life just flashed before my eyes. Like every bad habit that I've ever done, every time I said, "Oh, it could never be me. I could never get this diagnosis." And then here we are. I'm on the reciprocating end of a cancer diagnosis. And it was hard. It was difficult. And looking back now, I'm glad that I went, but also, I just thought about all the things that I should have done, and I was mad at myself. I was scared. I was, you know, embarrassed. I was a lot of emotions, and at the time, I was 26 years old, so I was young, and I was asking all these questions when I got the call, and she said, that my dimensions of my melanoma was bordering stage 1A into stage 1B. And with that being said, they said they not only had to excise the melanoma in my chest, but also do a sentinel lymph node biopsy under my arm. So about 3.5 weeks later, I was scheduled for surgery to remove the melanoma and to remove the few lymph nodes under my arm. And recovery from that was a little painful. And I've never been in surgery before. I've never had anesthesia. It was an outpatient surgery, but I was there for about 8 hours. It was a full day. I was in a lot of pain. I mean, as you can imagine, having, stitches here and here wasn't very comfortable, as you can imagine. So I'm a runner, and one of the first things I asked when I woke up was, when am I going to be able to run? And they said, you will not be running for quite some time. Your body needs to heal in the site that it was here and here. This kind of movement was probably not on the menu for anything good. So it was challenging because running just in general, even before my skin cancer diagnosis, it was always my therapy. It was my outlet. It was me just taking care of my body, feeling how strong my body was. And that was taken away from me for almost a month. It took that long for both this to heal as well as under here. So right after surgery, they told me we should have, the results back to see if the melanoma spread to your lymph nodes. And it was I believe it was about a week or two. And I got the results back, and thankfully the melanoma did not spread to my lymph nodes, and it did not spread to my organs, which is awesome because looking back, I'm one of the lucky ones that it did not spread. But even though that all happened to me in fall of 2019, I've still been on quite a journey with my skin health. I now have to go in to get a skin check every 3 months. Most people, it's usually recommended every year. But me and my dermatologist, we're best friends now. I see her every month or every 3 months. And so from every 3rd month skin check after that, I have had at least one mole removed and tested. There was another scare that happened to me actually last fall, and it was so weird because it was around the same time as my diagnosis in 2019. I had a weird looking mole on my left inner thigh, and they removed it, and it was tested, and it was called a Spitz nevus.
Mhm.
And the Spitz nevus, for those of you that don't know about it, under a microscope, it can resemble melanoma. And given my history, they wanted to, again, do an outpatient surgery and remove it. And again, wasn't able to run for another month. And, again, it was kind of like, wow, this is like deja vu. This is all happening again. And around the same time, it was just really weird. And thankfully, they were able to remove the Spitz nevus, and that was good. But again, to this day, I'm, to my knowledge, cancer free, but I know that moving forward, I'm not free of it because of my amount of moles I have, because of a history of skin cancer I have in my family. So that's a little bit about my story in a nutshell. I guess I'll hand it back to you, Erica.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. I mean, 26 years old, running was your outlet, and here you are just kind of at a standstill. And kind of one thing that we always like to talk about is community, because that is the focus of our company. Yes, we are a product company, but we are a community first and foremost. So I always like to ask people, who did you turn to for support while you were going through this?
Absolutely. So I really relied on, well, first and foremost, God. I did a lot of praying after my diagnosis and through my surgery and all that kind of stuff. And then probably after that, I would say my parents, my boyfriend, a few close friends of mine. I was kind of going back to what I said in the beginning, how I was embarrassed. I kind of didn't feel comfortable sharing with everyone at first. It actually took me probably around a month before I actually posted about it after my surgery, a month after that, posted about it on social media because I realized, well, Leah, you're going to just have this 3-inch scar across your chest for most likely the rest of your life. And, being a woman, wearing low cut tops, wearing bikinis, like, I don't want to keep retelling the story. So I just kind of wanted to put it out into the universe. And that's what I did. And I was actually even nervous pressing post, I remember, on that, because there were a few people that either followed me on social media or knew me well, knew that I, spent a lot of time outside in the sun and didn't wear sunscreen, used tanning beds. And I wouldn't want somebody to come at me and say, well, I told you so. Like, you should have known that, you could have got that. And that's not the kind of support and community I needed. I needed just, one, I wanted to let people know, but two, I wanted to let people know that, there's probably a lot of other people that weren't posting maybe their stories on social media that may have had a precancerous mole removed or something similar to me. And I wanted to just kind of get the word out there and provide awareness to everyone. But definitely I realized that keeping your story to yourself doesn't do any good. This happened for a reason. I might as well just kind of put it out there and see if it resonates with anyone. And because of what I have done on social media and posted a few times about my skin cancer journey, I've had people message me to say, because you posted something about you, I had the courage to post something about me. And that's all it takes, along with messages of, because of your post, I went to go get a skin check. And, that just, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about that, I'm not here to gain pity from anyone. I want no one to go through what I went through back in 2019. And, as of recently too, last year. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it definitely hits home, for me as well, is I felt kind of alone. My mom had gone through it, but I didn't know anyone else my age. So I had just turned 21 years old. I was starting it must have been my junior year of college. And I was like, no one my age can understand this. And I think I spoke to two of my closest friends and found out they both had the same experience, but none of us were talking about it. None of
Wow.
us felt like it was something that anyone else could relate to, and we were keeping it to ourselves. And having that conversation, I started feeling better to
Right.
know that people could understand, they could resonate with those feelings. Here were other women who were 21 years old, and just talking about it made me feel so relieved. I felt less alone. I felt more empowered to talk about it with other people. And then obviously from this network as well, sharing these stories is a form of healing.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree.
Another thing I wanted to talk about that we initially connected on when we first talked, and don't feel like you have to go into great detail about this, but I spoke about how I shared my skin cancer experience with my mom, and then you're also sharing it with your dad. Would you mind talking us through a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So, a month before my diagnosis of melanoma in 2019, my dad was actually diagnosed with stage 0 melanoma. He had a suspicious mole on his back that was removed and outpatient surgery, all that kind of stuff. And I think because his was stage 0, his dermatologist told him he didn't have to come back every 3 months. I think his was every 6 months. So he's actually one of the reasons why I said, well, if my dad's going to do it, I should probably get it done. And his father, my grandfather, who's no longer with us, he also had skin cancer on his face. I do not believe it was melanoma, but it definitely was a type of skin cancer. So that was kind of my push and shove for me to go get my skin check. But flash forward to now of 2021 in January, at the end of January, my dad unfortunately had a seizure while driving and immediately rushed to the hospital, did a lot of tests, and they actually found bleeding on his brain. And the bleeding was actually due to swelling and lesions on the brain that resembled metastatic melanoma. And obviously that was a hard pill to swallow because our first thought was this was removed back in 2019. It was a stage 0. How could this happen?
Mhm.
And as we both probably know, doctors won't always say, oh, we removed 100% of the cancer. And we're actually still to this day figuring out the prognosis here, but it's looking like my dad's case is a very rare case of a stage 0 spreading.
Mm.
He's had skin checks since then. Nothing else has, come off that resembled melanoma. So it may be the stage 0. This happened at the end of January, and from now until then, my dad actually has been undergoing gamma knife radiation treatment for lesions on his brain. And they also, during some additional testing, found lesions on his lungs as well. And we did find out that it was confirmed metastatic melanoma because they did a lung biopsy rather than doing a brain biopsy, since they never want to actually go into the brain unless they really have to. But they figured with the positive results of metastatic melanoma in the lungs, it resembled the same type of lesions in the brain. And that's kind of how they put 2 and 2 together. So he's actually will be starting immunotherapy for his lungs, hopefully sometime either this week or next week. And it's scary. It's very scary that, people do not treat melanoma as they should, like thinking about it. Like melanoma is so serious. And and especially if this is true that a stage 0, progressed over time to where my dad's at right now, that is super concerning and super serious. And you better believe that I've been thinking about, what's going on inside my body. And, skin checks, they're only done by the visible eye. They're not done by, a machine. And so it's scary to think about that, our moles being missed on people. And that's why skin checks are super important. So, it's been a challenge with my dad because unfortunately, because with the seizure, he's unable to drive, and he actually worked with Amazon and was a driver. And so he's actually also been out of work. So, just another thing to show that cancer affects every aspect of a person's life, whether it's skin cancer, breast cancer, lung cancer, anything like that. And so now it's interesting. I feel like my dad and I are doing this together. And one of the reasons why I wanted to get involved with L.U.V is because not only for me, but also for my dad, it's a way for me to not only cope with what I've been going through with my journey, but also what I'm now going through with my dad.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for sharing that too, because I know one that's not easy because it's happening right now. You're in the thick of it right now, and our community is here to support you in any way we can. It's not easy, but a community and a family going through it with you makes it a little better.
absolutely.
So when it comes to skin cancer, kind of just switching gears, we're going to get a little bit on a lighter note back again. There is a lot of misinformation that's spread. I'm sure you've seen it on your end too after going through it. So what is one myth about skin cancer or skin cancer awareness that you want to debunk?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would like to debunk the it's just skin cancer kind of myth. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, because a lot of people think that, skin cancer can just be cut out or removed and then you're cured, you're healed from it. And that's really not the case, especially with melanoma, because melanoma is the deadliest type of skin cancer. It's the fastest growing skin cancer. And so when people say, oh, it's just skin cancer, it's not. It's
Right.
still cancer. And a lot of people just don't understand that. And, for those of you watching that like numbers, I did some research and, there are 70,000 new cases of invasive melanoma that are diagnosed in the United States every single year. That's a lot of people. And it's one of the most frequent occurring cancers in young adults from ages 20 to 30. And that's my group, being 27 years old. And it's the main cause of cancer death in women 25 to 30. And again, that's my group. So if those statistics don't startle you, I don't know what does, but it startles me. So melanoma is not meant to be messed around with. It's not just skin cancer. It's way more than that. So that is definitely a myth that I want to debunk and want to put out there.
Yes, that is a huge one. Caitlin, our March ambassador, said the exact same thing, which just shows you how often it gets circulated around that people say, oh, it's just skin cancer. I can just get it cut out and I'll be fine. And the reality is, sure, if you catch it early enough, that could be what you have to do. But I've heard that time and time again. It's not just skin cancer. And that's definitely a good one. So on that note, is there anything else that you want to share with the audience?
I would just say that if you are like me in 2019 and haven't had a skin check yet, call your doctor after watching this video. Call your dermatologist, find a dermatologist if you don't have one. My skin check in 2019 saved my life. I think about, what if I never went? What if I let that mole grow and grow? Sure, probably wouldn't have been a stage 1A. I definitely would have to agree with myself on that one. But I would also say too that, if you do have parents that haven't also had a skin check, siblings, other family members, and you personally have gone through something like I've gone through, I would highly encourage you to not stop talking about skin checks to them. And it's sometimes people need to hear it more than once, twice, three times, four times, but as long as you keep reminding them, you never know when they may, give it and accept it. Like, oh, I need to go get my skin checked. I would also tell the audience, wear sunscreen. Always wear sunscreen. I now, after having skin cancer, I do not go out in the sun longer than 15 minutes if I'm not wearing sunscreen. I love to be outside. Like I said, I'm a runner, I'm a golfer. I love to hike. And I also kayak in the summertime with my boyfriend. So I've actually also dabbled into the UPF clothing, which love that L.U.V has that. And another reason why I'm really passionate about getting involved with you guys. So, and some people are like, oh, I don't want to wear that kind of clothing. Like it's probably itchy, it's probably thick. It is like the comfiest clothing I've ever worn. It's soft, it's breathable. And I feel like more people are becoming more aware of it. So they're actually creating really cute, stylish clothes. And so I would definitely recommend that. And yeah, I think that if you're a person like me and you've got a lot of moles, atypical moles, please go get checked. You don't know what is actually happening under your skin. So it's definitely good to see a professional, get a second opinion, anything like that. We only have one body in this life and our skin is our largest organ. So we have to take care of it.
Right. Yeah. I read something the other day that said it was talking about your skin being the largest organ. So why are you not making appointments to take care of it?
Yes.
And it was
Yes.
so true what you said too about UPF clothing. Everything we sell, I wear around to make sure it is comfortable and breathable. I'm like, I do not want women wearing these products sweating and uncomfortable. They need to be comfortable. They need to be living their everyday lives just protected.
Yes. 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, Leah, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much for coming on, being candid, sharing your story, in the hopes that it will connect others. I have no doubt that people are going to watch this and are able to relate to your story. So thank you so much for sitting down with me today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Erica.